Welcome to Jordan and Drew, the Sports Crew, the EWC breakdown for March 8th, 2022. This is March Madness. We are now in the thick of it right now. Boys, their sectionals are starting up. It's heating up right now. And then girls, state is starting. So we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. I myself, Drew Skyberg, I'm here today, and I'm joined alongside Robert Shimmick. So, Robert, how you doing?
It's March. We're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. It is insane. We have to talk about the insane stories that have happened around the WIAA, Robert. We'll start with Nina and Hortonville. If you guys have not seen this, it's kind of gone crazy on Twitter, right? There was a controversial, it was called the traveling call, and it happened as a player was calling a timeout for Hortonville, and this was in the Division I sectional semi game Thursday with Nina and Hortonville. It was in Kimberly. And yeah, like I said, the whole, I'm going to try to paint the picture here, but a girl's dribbling up the court and she called timeout right past half court. She called timeout. Coach called timeout, right? And what the official did, they proceeded to call a travel over and instead of granting the timeout. So therefore, everyone's upset, right? And then we see the coach actually get a technical foul for throwing the whiteboard we saw. But Robert, what were your thoughts on this play in general?
Well, I don't know if maybe you could blame it on the Kimberly gym, because that's the second call we've seen at the Kimberly gym late in the game. One with the boys and now one with the girls. This one really more big because it ended Hortonville, who was number one all year, ended their season. But yeah, I don't know. I think just as a ref there, I mean, I'm a ref myself, obviously not reffing sectional games, but I just think you're going to have to expect a timeout coming. And from people I've just heard on Twitter or people in the gym, they've all said everyone was just screaming timeout, timeout. If you watch the video, their coach just assumed they had a timeout. She's already drawn up a play on her whiteboard. And all of a sudden she hears travel and she can't even believe it. I don't know. I looked at the play, multiple views. It's close. I mean, it definitely looked awkward. It looked weird. But at the same time, I just think when everyone's calling timeout and you're expecting a timeout, I think you just have to grant them timeout. And I don't think it could have easily been avoided, I think, by the baseline ref coming in and be like, oh, we screwed this up. It can't end this way.
Exactly.
Blows his whistle and says, no, I had a timeout first. And then, I had a timeout first. I mean, Nina can't really get upset about that just because. And then what got me really upset was you can't – I don't really even care what happened. I'm not calling a technical on their coach there after you kind of just blew that. She could have threw a chair, and I'm still not probably giving her a technical foul. It was just I don't know. Obviously you can't hear what was said, so we can't obviously make that decision. But I just think after you make a call like that, you just kind of have to. You just can't give a weak technical, basically. Deciding the game there. But I'll say this, I mean, Nina, they were up 2. It's not like it lost them the game. They were still down 2. Nina played great down the stretch. So I don't know. It's just what it is. And Nina was winning. So I'm not even that upset that they move on.
Yeah. You mentioned something Bob Knight-esque there with the chair maybe, but wow. There's a lot of questions, right? I mean, you mentioned some of them. Really, we didn't see the officials get together after this to maybe even talk through this play. That was something I thought maybe we, might have cleared some things up. And yeah, would Nina fans or Nina, the coach or players even in general be maybe upset if they granted that timeout? I think, there's sometimes people say over officiating, and that's sometimes, that might be a word that we've seen thrown out regarding this. I could see, we mentioned even off, maybe even a carry call, right? Is that something? Because the call was actually a travel, and we were talking, don't maybe not even to refer to it as a travel, but it was just an awkward movement which caused the official to call a travel is what the call was. But a lot of questions I think with this, but yeah, I guess to kind of wrap things up here, it was just one play in the game, and we want to mention it because This was very controversial. Twitter was going crazy after this play and after this game in general. But yeah, one play doesn't really just, play a part in the game, but you can't really, say Hortonville would have won if this call wasn't because they were still losing, right?
Yeah.
So that's where at the end of the day, it's a bummer for Hortonville to maybe go out with kind of a sour taste in their mouth after a call like this that, you don't know how it would have worked out, but hey, it's playoff basketball. So we'll move on with that. Robert, we'll talk about the lone girls game that, the lone team in the EWC that was left for the girls. It was the Brilliant Lions after they did beat Kiel in that sectional semi, right? So, and you know what they say about, playing a team 3 times, it's always a good time. With them splitting the series now, and this was kind of like best of 3, right? So we saw Brilliant took care of Kiel, right? I mean, do you want to add anything with that game before we talk about that Saturday game against Freedom?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I watched it on the Kiel Raider radio broadcast here, and I mean, basically it was just the first half. I think Brilliant was probably 8 for 10, 8 for 11 from beyond the arc. Just, and it's not like they didn't hit the rim. I couldn't. It was just an insane. They didn't shoot like that the entire year. An insane shooting night for Brilliant. They were just on one that night. I mean, Elena Shue, Aubrey Williams, Maya, Megan, like they were all just on hitting threes in that first half. And McKenna Dietrich had too. Like it was just a perfect half. They scored 40-20 at halftime. It was pretty much over from there. But yeah, that didn't last long once they ran into Freedom.
Yeah, and with Freedom, I mean, I was not there at that game. I was delivering hoodies Saturday, but what happened there? 83-46 was the final. Freedom got the win. Would you say, is there really anything Brilliant could have done game planning wise? Was there any strategy maybe, or what could Brilliant have done better?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the game, I think they play 50 times. Brilliant wins 2-1. Like it was just one of those things where Freedom, they're just way better team. They have several college players on that team, one D1 player, and she was just a horse in that game. Really good post player, and like I said to you before the meeting, they probably, I bet you, kind of like Brilliant, they were really, really good on their 3-point percentage. I bet you they had 10 to 12 threes in the game, probably around 45 to 50%. And they were just a better team. So, no one can point fingers at Brilliant. Oh, we should on this. I mean, it was just a blowout from about the 10-minute mark to almost running clock at the end of the second half. And Freedom, they're going to go on, and they're probably my pick to win it all. Them and Waupun will be close. Yeah,
and like you mentioned, several college players. It was Megan Alexander had 17. That was her leading scorer. She's going Division II South Dakota Mines for school there. So, just to point out, like this team's full of talent and really tough for Brilliant. Just a tough matchup, I'd say, in a sectional final, to say the least. But now I guess let's transition a little into boys. We'll start with another controversial story that happened in the WIA playoffs. And this one, St. Thomas More. What happened was basically they were forced to either use JV players or forfeit the game after a fight that took place in one of their games in the playoffs. And it was they would have played Brown Deer then. They opted to forfeit because they would have had to play JV players. And basically the whole rule being, if players from the bench leave the bench during a fight, they're suspended as well. Robert, what were your thoughts on this? I know you've seen this, but what did you think?
I mean, a lot of people are quickly to get mad. I mean, the WIA is always in a hard spot with these things. So, I mean, a lot of people are easy to sit behind a computer or phone and just say, oh, WIA, you're ruining kids' lives. You're doing this. But I don't know. I'm usually on that side of things. But I just looked at it like, who are they playing? Like Mercer Academy or some team that they had no business losing to or even being close, and it wasn't close. You're in the back half of this, you're closing out the game, and yeah, you're a team that playing St. Thomas More, you're down 35 you don't have anything to play for. You're just, who knows? And it's different basketball down in that southeast corner of the state, and it's just like these things happen. I feel like St. Thomas More, this team that you're beating is no threat to you. Like, they kind of started like it had happened. So who's there? Was it Fuller Academy or
it was yep. I got that. It was Fuller Collegiate Academy they played. They were up 82-50. 82-52. They won. They advanced, but then they had to opt to play JV players. And yeah, this team was a 1 seed too, to point that out as well. So
yeah, like they were ranked in the top 5 on the AP poll, but like, so yeah, like Fuller Academy, it's just like this team had nothing to do. So basically, yeah, like one of the players kind of like walked over a guy who was on the floor, and then St. Thomas More guy shoves him, which, I mean, fans, it was an ugly scene. Fans were on the court. Everyone's leaving the bench. And it's like, I don't really fault the players for leaving the bench, really, just because, like, it's not like they came out just throwing haymakers. It wasn't like a brawl. It was just they came out kind of to, like, either break stuff up or just kind of protect their team. But at the same time, it's just like, how do you let that happen when you have so much to lose and people are getting shoved into hallways and fans are, it's just like, honestly, for the WIAA, like, what do people really expect them to do? It's just like, that's the rule. If you leave the bench, so you really can't say, oh, they were trying to protect it. No, just stay on the bench, the 5 players on the floor. And it's just like, it's not the WIA's job to spend hours dissecting every security camera and every, stream. So it's just like, they just kind of got put in a bad situation. So that's the ruling they made. And honestly, it's just like, you can't really get yourself in that situation. You have to be above fighting Fuller Collegiate Academy in the WIA semifinal game, or regional semifinal. Yep. Like,
you got to be better than that.
Know. It's a tough situation. I don't like that their whole team got disqualified, but at the end of the day, don't get yourself in that situation. That's my advice.
Yeah, right. And they're appealing it right now. St. Thomas More High School, they filed an appeal, and they are asking the league to reconsider its suspension of the school's varsity players. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere, because we got to get the show rolling, right? I mean, we got state coming up next weekend already. So I think this isn't going to go anywhere, Robert. I'm sure you agree with me on that, right? This is just
I think I don't really know what they expect them to do. They already played another game, so it's just like, you can't discredit another team or Brown Deer, whoever. Like, it's not fair to them. And yeah, it's just like, I think the same thing might have happened with Xavier about 10 years ago when they had that illegal player play for them, and they got lawyers involved, and obviously you just can't do anything. It's just like, it sucks, but those are rules, and you got to deal with it. You can't have that happen in March.
Yeah, and Messmer, the 13th seed, they won via forfeit against the 4th seed Carmen Northwest, and that's who Brown Deer played in the regional. Was it the quarterfinal? So yeah, they were, or the regional semifinal. My bad. But so they actually benefited from 2 forfeits right now in the playoffs already. Yeah, Carmen's
a good team. I watched a video of them. They barely lost to Milwaukee Science, I think by like 98-99, something like that. It was by like 1 point. They're a really good team. So that's kind of lucky for Brown Deer.
Yeah, exactly. And Brown Deer are catching these breaks. Now they play right now, to top it off too, the sectional, it'll probably get moved, but it's at Brown Deer right now. So I'm sure they'll get that. They'll probably change that, but they'll play Dominican. So we'll talk now EWC stuff. However, very, very soon we'll be talking conference teams when they're announced and conference play of the year, our reactions, our teams. We'll talk all about it in a future episode. But right now, as this is the Tuesday breakdown episodes, we'll try to keep them shorter. We'll start in Division 3. We'll talk about the crazy games that happened for EWC teams. We'll start, in the bottom right corner here, with Brilliant, right? They played Utzberg. They struggled a little bit against Utzberg. I know it was a 17-point win, but I mean, I think that's a little misleading with how that first half was played. 31-26, I believe Utzberg was up at half. And then, Brilliant was able to, it was all Brilliant second half, and they were able to take care of the win. But the big one was the regional final against Denmark, Robert. You watched that game. I'll let you start with your thoughts and reactions of that regional final.
Yeah, so I wasn't in attendance. I was filming an Oshkosh game in the bleachers and kind of just pausing and at dead balls watching, and then at halftime, I was, Brilliant started, and it was, I think, 11-6, 14-8. Like, they had like a 6-8 point lead early in the game, and I thought Brilliant's just better. I mean, Jeremy Lorenz went on a little run to start the game where he had like 3 blocks in a row. He took it coast to coast, blew by Donovan Short one time, and he was just really, really on fire. But it's just like picked up a couple ticky-tack fouls early on, and just maybe not the most disciplined fouls. He was trying to block a lot of shots, whether they were clean or not, just leaving his feet. And he had like 1 foul in the first half, but picked up 2 right away in the second half. Picked up his 4th then, I think with about 11 minutes left. And at that point, Brilliant was down 10 at halftime. Denmark went on a run to close the half. And Jeremy Lorenz, when he went out, it was, I believe, like a 13, 12-point game. And I was like, well, he's got 4. Shoot. I thought Brilliant, I knew they could still come back and battle, but I was like, this is going to be tough. And, I mean, credit Grady Geiger hit a 3 at the top of the key. Caden Holly made some very, very tough plays, had some steals. I mean, Caden Holly is one of the best guards in the EWC. Maybe just though his points per game is not up there with the leaders, but he is very, very good shooter. He made a lot of great plays. So Brilliant they kind of clawed it back, and then it was Lorenz came back in. They went on a little run without Lorenz, and Lorenz came back in with about maybe 7 minutes left, and it was now about a 6-point game. He had like 2 baskets, 2 tough finishes. And then, like, I think I listened to your episode that came out, was it today?
It would have been Mondays, yeah.
I listened to that. Because you watched the game, right? Or the second half?
I was able to catch some, yeah. That was for the 1-year anniversary he's talking about. But, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you kind of gave a little recap there on, like, the call. So Lorenz is just driving down the right side, or drew from the top of the key to, like, about the elbow. And Short's kind of riding him. He's kind of got an arm on Short, and then he kind of just like tries to move him with his hip. In 6'10", 230, Donovan Short just goes flying. I mean, you would have thought he got, he went flying through the air, went to the ground, called a charge. It was borderline. I mean, obviously it was a flop. It wasn't the worst call a charge, but I don't think it was a charge. So anyway, Lorenz has to sit down. And at this point, I'm like, I don't know about this. And then, they just kind of kept themselves in it. And I thought the play of the game for Brilliant was, like you said, Donovan Short trying to be the hero and posterizing Bennett Olson. In the process, I didn't know if he was like, going to be able to walk the rest of the night. And he's sitting on the bench for the last 2 minutes of the game. And Denmark missed free throws. They airballed 1, missed 4 free throws, and it was a 1-point game. Brilliant called their play. Parker Brown came down the floor and just turned it over, threw it right to the defense. So with about 30 seconds left, Brilliant's down 1, and they have to they foul. They didn't foul. Denmark called the timeout. They stole the inbounds pass, and then Parker Brown did not have a great night, but he give credit to him, still attacked, got fouled, got the biggest roll ever on the first one.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It was up on the top of the backboard, fell in somehow, drained the second one, and then Donovan Short somehow looked fine for that last possession, came out on the floor. They got him on like a ball screen backdoor slip, but Grady Geiger just saw it really well, read it, and just swiped the ball from his hands, hit the backboard, and Mason Banky threw it down to the other end. And I'll say this, I've probably seen every Brilliant game for the last 10 years. That was number 1 on just nuts win, insane wins. I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe what I just watched. It was just I don't know. They escaped with a win. We'll just say that. And now they got Kiwani.
Yeah. You touched on it perfectly, right? They've made some big shots when they needed to in this postseason, I guess, if we want to word it like that. Bennett Olson also has made some big threes in those first 2 games, I'd say, just to really, get momentum going. But I mean, I was able to I watched that brilliant Utzberg game as well. It seems, at least in the postseason in general, I've seen everything being a charge. I'm talking officiating, not to complain whatsoever, but it seems we've seen a lot of that, Robert, and it sounds like you agree with me, right?
Yeah, I always try to, be on the ref's side or, give them, but it's just like at some point in time, it's just like, I don't know, they kind of just have to reevaluate. Not everything can be a charge.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I've seen as well in the games I've watched. But let's talk about the game, because now, we know Brilliant is playing Kewanee, but to get there, Kewanee did beat number 6 Kiel, and that was at Kiel. That was a 43-42 game. And yeah, stats are in for this game, so we were looking through it. Brayden April coming up big again, 12 points. He was the leading scorer for the Kiel Raiders, something not many probably would think, looking at how the regular season went out and overall. But yeah, Brayden April is a solid player, and he's certainly going to be one of those guys for the future, of course, for the Raiders. And yeah, this Kewanee team was, Valders beat this Kewanee team, if I'm not mistaken. So I just want to point that out. But Robert, what have you seen from this Kiel game, and what overall are your thoughts? Let's hear them.
Well, to start, I just think Kewanee executed a very good defensive game. I think their goal was just, okay, we're going to slow it down. And Kewanee's they're in the Packerland. They like to speed things up. They like to score points. And traditionally the Packerland has just been kind of, oh, let's shoot a bunch of threes. Let's just score a bunch of points. But in this game, they knew, okay, we're not going to win it if we're just going to let Kiel run up and down the floor and let Munns get offensive rebounds. And they're not going to win it that way. So I think they really just kind of slowed them down on defense. Ben Heim's a good player for Kewanee. He didn't play the first time these two teams met, and he was the difference. I mean, he's kind of a streaky player, shoots a ton, but he makes them go. And Kewanee did just enough to barely. I mean, they played 10 times. I think Kiel wins 7 to 8 of them, but yeah, it didn't happen that night. They're going to win in the 40s, and that's what they had to do. And they're not going to win 70 to 65. They're not going to win those high-scoring games. So they knew that, okay, we're just going to force Kiel to shoot a lot of contested threes. We're not going to let them dribble around, and that's just kind of what happened. And Kiel was in they were kind of switching defenses. They're in a zone late in the second half, and Kewanee just dribbled the gap and just found guys sitting on the block, and they just made some big scores. But yeah, Brayden April, mentioned him a couple times. I mean, he had a big tough finish at Kettle Moraine Lutheran with defenders flying by him. He kind of adjusted himself in the air to make that one. That was probably the highlight of his young career so far, but he's got a lot of highlights left, and that guy's a special player. For the next 3 years, Kiel's going to be lucky to have him.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are the Brilliant Lions, you got to be happy with facing Kewanee, right?
Yeah, I'd say, Brilliant beat them by 20 at Kewanee earlier in the year, back when Brilliant was still undefeated and they kind of on their little run they went through there in the middle of the season. And obviously, I don't think you can expect it to be an easy 20-point game, but I'd still favor Brilliant in this one. I just don't know how Kewanee's really going to match up with their size. I think if Kewanee's going to win, they have to just force Brilliant to play slow and force Brilliant to chuck up threes. I think if Brilliant gets it in a fast-paced type of game and gets it, where they can just dominate the inside, I like Brilliant in this one.
Yeah, and, maybe if you're Kewanee, you got to watch what Utzberg did to Brilliant in that first half. Not saying, that it would exactly translate over, because Brilliant did start really slow in that game. But just anything, for Kewanee to make it a game, right? Because you mentioned a 20-point loss for Kewanee the first go around. But here we go. That game's at Chilton. And then, yeah, Brilliant, if they win that game, they'll already know who they'll be playing, because that game, the game above, Freedom, with the girls making it to state, they moved that game to Wednesday, and that's at O'Connell Falls. So either Northland Pines or Freedom. So we could potentially see a Brilliant Freedom round 2, right? And this time now a sectional final in the boys area, and that would be at Two Rivers. So, Robert, do you know any, Northland Pines? I mean, they've made it out of regionals. I know that was a team maybe as a 1 seed there was some question about, but what do you think about these two schools matching up, Northland Pines and Freedom, and who would you rather play?
I mean, if I'm Brilliant and the game stays at Two Rivers, I'd rather play Northland Pines just because I think they're not very familiar with this area and they're going to have to travel 4 hours to come play you. So I think Brilliant gets a little advantage there right away. But I watched Northland Pines play Xavier, and they're just a good team. They're really balanced. They got a bunch of juniors who are really solid. Just can shoot, can drive, just overall nice players. And I didn't watch it that closely, just bits and pieces of the game. But yeah, they beat Xavier on their home floor, and it was a pretty big deal when they won. And so this team's got some momentum right now. I think they had a couple mutual opponents with Freedom, and Northland Pines did not do as well as Freedom against those teams. So I think Freedom is my pick here for this one. But you never know. It's March. Northland Pines is hot. But yeah, I just think if Brilliant can beat Kewanee, both teams would be a good matchup. And I think Freedom, they really match up pretty good with them just because you got 2 stars and Van Kelster and Lorenz. And then Freedom's got some height and they're athletic, and Brilliant's got some height too and they're pretty athletic. So I think that's very good game if they play.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nose. It's going to be a great game. I think Freedom Brilliant round 2 would be a lot of fun. See if maybe Brilliant can avenge the girls' loss. So with that, let's go to Division 4, right? We won't spend much here on Roncalli. They won 82-30. They blew them out. They play St. Mary Catholic. I got them winning that game. I think it'll be, I don't know if it'll be even that close. I think sectional final, I'm going to guess Iola gets there, and I think that's going to be a tough game for Roncalli. I think that'll be a good game, Robert. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, first, I mean, Roncalli played St. Mary's in the beginning, like midway through the season, and if I remember correctly, Roncalli got out to a 20-0 run to start the game, and that's when Roncalli was still undefeated, and they were playing really well. And then I think past that point, St. Mary's just kind of beat them like from that point on, but obviously they couldn't overcome the 20-point deficit. But I think at a neutral site, where's that game at?
Menasha.
Okay, I mean, yeah, so SMC's right close to their home gym. They don't have much travel. Roncalli's got about, almost an hour. So I think that's a closer game than many would expect just because SMC can get really hot. I still expect Roncalli to win that one by about 10. And then, yeah, I mean, Iola, they're still undefeated, I believe, 25-0. And they got a really good player, Parker Prawl. Really good player. And, yeah, I think Roncalli's have their hands full in that one. I still think Roncalli might be my pick, though, there. I just think they're very solid. I know you mentioned on your previous episode they have some injuries, but rosters shrink or subbing and lineups shrink when you come into sectional and regional games. So I just think you got to just Witzak, Yanda, and Pouts. You just got to work through them like they have all year. I think they'll be okay, but that one will be a great game.
Yeah, and that game will be then at Auburndale. So that will be a game for state.
Interesting.
And then let's go to the other section or other area in Division 4. This is where Valders was, right? So we talked Valders, St. Mary's Springs, and Robert and I, a general consensus of people thought, even though Valders was the 7 seed, you're playing the 2 seed, that Valders was the favorite, right? St. Mary's Springs, it felt almost had no business maybe being a 2 seed in, matching up with Valders there. And yeah, Valders ended up getting that win in overtime, 60-57. And yeah, Robert, were you able to catch any of that? And what were your thoughts? Because like we said, Valders being the favorite, and yeah, rightfully so. They did their job.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I had them to win that game. I didn't catch too much of it. I think just kind of in the end, like that. Was that an overtime game?
Yep, overtime. Yep.
Yeah, that was an overtime game, and yeah, Valor's just a better team, I think, overall. Wasn't surprised they won, and yeah, they just did what they needed to do. Who led them in scoring that game? Valders.
I believe it was Hovey. I don't. There no stats. They don't give us stats for
Yeah.
Valor's. It does not have any of them in. So I'm gonna say Hovey, but again, I could be wrong. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think overall they were just a better team. They played better competition all year long, and they're in that Springs in that flyaway conference, I believe, and it's just they played better competition. I think they were more ready and probably better coached in that game, but it's just and then they played Howard's Grove, and like you said, they hung in there. But you want to cover that game at all? No, you were at that
I
game.
would love to. I was actually in attendance of that game. I actually, no bias even. I had Valor's winning that game. I thought they, it was an 8-point game. Valor's was up maybe 2 or 3 still with like 6 minutes to go, right? It was back and forth. But at the end of the day, Howard's Grove was able to get that 8-point win. And then, talking stats, of course, the name was Miles Barnstable. He was kind of that top guy for Howard's Grove all year. He finished with 26, but, it was 11 from 11 from the line. I still felt that Mason Myers did a phenomenal job on him. Even Hovey matching up with him once in a while. I still think, regardless of the 26 points, look, he got a clear path foul with 2-3 minutes to go. Right, he was shooting foul or free throws to close out the game. It just felt like it was a 26-point outing that was really maybe less. Right, so I just think Howard's Grove, they still played well, right? It was there at that wonderful Howard's Grove gym is where it was played, and which didn't have enough seating. They had to bring chairs out, but they were able to fit everyone in if they wanted to watch the game, which was great. But they moved then the sectional semi. It was supposed to be at Hilbert, Robert. So talk about trying to fit Sheboygan Lutheran and Howard's Grove, the fans, all in Hilbert's gym. That's just not going to happen, right? So they moved that game. Sheboygan South now is the location. But Cole Hovey took over at the end, right? He was trading buckets with some of the Howard's Grove players, and Jackson Olson. What hurt was he picked up 3 fouls in 10 minutes. So he had 3 already. And that put Valor's in a tough spot. It really did. He sat most of the end of the first half, like that second half of the first half, maybe if you want to call it that. And that was definitely, a crucial part of the game. Overall, just a tough way for Valor's to go out, losing, Brady Bodart, Mason Myers, those guys. But, hey, they still have that junior class. They're coming back for season number 4. And, of course, Cole and Jackson highlight that squad. And I'm excited for his Valor's team next year, Albert.
Yeah, me too. I think they'll have some good matchups with Kiel. I think right now I'd put them, just because they're losing their Mason Myers, who's very undervalued player, underrated player, and Bodart, who's just another shooter. Shooters are so valuable. I think right now I'd put them at 3, but I definitely think they'll have good matchups with Kiel next year. And I'd have them. They're definitely a top 3 team in the conference next year.
Well, you might as well lock a win at home against Brilliant, right? I guess.
Pretty much.
Mason Myers, but you mentioned him. Like I even mentioned on our Monday episode, the way he was able to contort his body and make he made some great layups, some solid spin moves involved, just able to really make some great plays offensively. It was a pretty balanced scoring otherwise, with Hovey leading, I believe, with 21 was like I said, no stats. Trey Schneider added a couple buckets, right? Brady Bodart was, I believe, probably around 12 or something. Jackson finished with like 15. It was solid output overall. And just like I said, a tough way to go out for the Vikings because, I guess the winner, whoever won that game, gets that regional plaque. But I don't think either of those teams is beating Sheboygan Lutheran. However, I would like to add, Howard's Grove did only lose by 10 against Sheboygan Lutheran in the first go-around, but I don't think that's going to happen here. I think Lutheran's got this one in the bag. What do you think?
Miles Barnstable revenge game. Transferred from Sheboygan Lutheran, so you never know. His brother played there. You never know. He could just be on one at Sheboygan South, and he could just go off like he's done a lot of times this year. You mentioned he didn't play maybe like his greatest game against Valdez, had a lot of easy points, but yeah, I definitely think Sheboygan Lutheran is favored in this one. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know. I've watched Sheboygan Lutheran play twice now this year, and I think if they beat Howard's Grove, I like them over Milwaukee Science. Just because they're just so much, I think, just better run, and they just run actual offense and play actual basketball rather than just playing YMCA ball like Milwaukee Academy of Science does. But I don't know. I think this one is a close game, like most sectional games are. I like Lutheran maybe by like, I think it'll be a high scoring game. I think 85-75. I think it'll be high scoring.
Yeah, I think high scoring is definitely going to be the way to go for that game as well. And yeah, that kind of that's the D4 area, right? Valdez, Kiel, Brilliant, and Roncalli, the 4 teams were left, and now the 2 Kiel and Valdez losing, and that leaves our top 2. So we kind of like say our tier list again. It's very similar to that's how it's ended up right now with Brilliant and Roncalli left with sectional semis coming up Thursday, and yeah, we're looking forward to that. State girls basketball is coming up this weekend, I guess, at the Rush Center. And then, of course, after the Thursday sectional semis and the Saturday sectional finals, we got state. We're going to the Kohl Center, Robert. That's where that's happening. And with that, you got anything else to add?
No, not really much. I mean, I know the all conference meeting is happening right now as we speak on Monday night, at New Holstein High School. We probably will not release anything until like it's released officially on Twitter or whatever on WSN. But we might know. Players will probably know it by maybe even the end of tonight. But once they're officially released to the public, I'll get those out posted along with girls too. Even though those I think are already decided.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to be covering this stuff. We still got our end of the year season recaps, all that good stuff. Maybe a solid hour, recapping girls and boys, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk conference teams still, and then to kind of like tie everything up. Once state ends, we'll do, we'll look at everything, and then maybe we'll start diving into maybe looking at next year, right? We'll do our brief little previews with that, but yeah, this was a great episode, Robert, and yeah, thank you all for listening to yet another episode of Jordan and Drew, the Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.